Good afternoon. I'd like to call the February 4th, 2020 Public Service Commission meeting to order. I'm going to read a statement here. Customers wishing to address the Commission for items that are not on the agenda, please fill out the request to speak form located on the table by the elevators out back, and give to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting prior to speaking. Customers wishing to address the Commission regarding a specific agenda item other than the rate hearing will be given an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Each customer will be given 3 minutes to address the Commission. We're here to listen. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email or anything that cannot be resolved this evening. First order of business is to elect officers. We're looking for a secretary. I'm willing to take nominations from the board, the commission, excuse me.
I would nominate Sebastian, Commissioner McDougall, if he's interested.
Okay, great. We have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next, to approve the agenda, I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Item 4, consent agenda. Are we removing anything from the consent agenda? Item 11?
Were you removing item 11?
Removing item 11, right. Do you want to amend?
Yep, amend item 11 being, with item 11 being removed.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to customers to be heard and recognitions. Do we have any customers to be heard or recognitions? Are you speaking on an item that's, let me see. Item 10 was not, it was on the consent agenda.
I asked for it to be removed, and nobody made a motion. So now I'm a customer to be heard.
Okay, wonderful. You approach the podium and state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Joppa. I'm a Moorhead resident. I'm a longtime labor and employment attorney. I work statewide for a labor union, but I've also worked for the city of Moorhead many years ago. Since that time, I worked for Law Enforcement Labor Services for 10 years. That's a police union. And since late in the year 2000, I worked for AFSCME Council 65 as their staff attorney. And I want to ask some questions about item number 10, or at least put forth some points that I would like you to consider. I've asked the item come off the consent agenda, but I was unsuccessful, I guess, in convincing the commissioners that I talked to do so. In my line of work, I've sat in on hundreds of employment-related investigations throughout the entire state. In my line of work, I've worked with and across the table from many an investigator, be they an attorney or police officer or BC agent, all kinds of folks who do investigations. My concern here with item number 10 and the contract for Ms. Soldo is that you haven't set a budget, you haven't set a timetable, and I can't tell if your focus is a narrow one or a broad one. If you're going to be visiting with only a few employees or managers, or if you're going to be visiting with all of your staff about any particular type of topic. And I don't want you to disclose the topic. You shouldn't. You'd violate the Data Practices Act quite possibly here in Minnesota if you did so. But I'd like to point out that there's a number of expert local attorneys and investigators in the Fargo-Moorhead area and also in the region that could do this work. You don't need to go to the Twin Cities and have all the expense of having a Twin Cities investigator come all this way. possibly multiple times, to do whatever kind of interviews it is you need to have conducted. I do know that Ms. Soldo has no background and experience in the public utilities, and so I'm not quite sure why you're hiring her in particular. I'll just point out for you today's newspaper article about the Cass County Board of Commissioners and an investigation that they did in their social services department in order to remedy some workplace problems. And they hired a local attorney by the name of Patricia Monson. And she, could certainly be questioned and asked and visited with about whether she's available to do whatever it is that you need to have done. There's some really good attorneys in Fergus Falls who could do this work as well. They're with the Pemberton Law Firm, and I recommend them. I've sat through many of the interviews that they've done in all kinds of settings, cities, counties, school districts, what have you, and they've done some really quality work, even though they're investigating my members as union members. So I encourage you to draw some boundaries to set a budget and also to hire locally, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other customers to be heard? Recognitions? Old business? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9, reports. City Council? Chuck,
Hello.
how are you?
Just dandy, thanks. Couple of things with the city council. First thing, we just reestablished our, I gotta scroll here, I apologize. Our city policy for sandbag and emergency measure deployment during flood events, so same thing as last year. And we are gonna flood, right, Joel? Pretty sure.
I would hope not. Councilmember Henderson.
So we did reestablish that. We also took a vote on the ability to set a sales tax. It's not, we didn't set a sales tax, but it gave us the ability to bring it to the public for a vote for a sales tax. So it's one of the options we have along with bonding and everything else. So that did pass. So those are the two big items. Unless Heidi or Deb, do you have anything to add? No? Okay. So that's it.
Wonderful. Public Service Commission, any reports? Managers report. Travis, you're in the hot seat.
I am. On the manager report, we got a few things. The first one is talking about the XL increase in their electric rates in Minnesota. There's a little comparison there. It looks like it's going up about 4% in Minnesota, and we have a little comparative numbers there between XL and MPS, so explaining the differences in the cost. So along with that, we've got a thank you from Moorhead Public Area Schools, the Downtown Moorhead Inc. annual newsletter. And then just to get acquainted with the staff, we're going to visit a little bit about some of the items that you might see coming up in the year. I'll go first with the electric division. We have an electric division master plan that we're just finalizing. That really looks at a 5 to 10 year plan of the assets that we have and things that we're going to do. A lot of it ties to substations and distribution, where we need to put new feeders. Do we have any concerns with some of the existing system that we have now? Along with that, probably next meeting you'll be seeing a task order agreement with engineering firm to work on some modifications in our Centennial substation. It's part of our master plan. We just want to get started on it ahead of time because of all the design work that has to be done. FM diversion, Joel's aware of this as well. We have a MOU that's going to be coming forward to you as well. We have to relocate or reconfigure a transmission line that's going to cross the diversion. And we're working with the diversion authority on that. Along with that, we're working towards automated meter infrastructure, AMI. That will both be an electric and water thing. We'll bring that to you guys as well with more information in the future. And extension, upgrade, and cable replacement projects, those will be ongoing as well throughout the year. On an additional part, actually item D, which is the next item that's on consent, that's a NERC audit that was done. Electric Division is required to follow NERC requirements, National Electric Reliability Corporation, and we had an audit in October. We had no findings on that. They had a couple recommendations on things to do differently, but other than that, it was good. Other than that, I'm going to have Chris Knutson, our Water Division Manager, come up and speak to the Water Division. Oh, Heidi?
Thank you, Travis. Real quick, that relocation, that transmission line relocation, how much will that cost and who will pay that?
We have easements for that line, so the diversion will relocate that at their cost. There is some betterment that we might do with that, and we would be paying for those costs.
So anything above and beyond
Just relocating.
the basic relocation,
Yep.
we will pay because we are improving that line? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Question. Just out of curiosity, where's that located, Travis? Is it
The relocation.
down south? Yeah.
Yep, on 32nd, so the location of that is roughly on 32nd Avenue, just west of the Cheyenne diversion is where that line is at.
Okay, so it's south-south. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
I've reviewed the contract with the Diversion Authority, and Travis and I are going to sit down and go through it, but when he talks about betterment, there's a couple possibilities. One is that we may be trying to straighten out the route of the line so it doesn't go diagonally across a field. And then we need to talk about what size we want the line to be so that if we need to upgrade in the future, it's already accomplished for that part of the facility.
And then just transitioning to the Water Division, I just wanted to list a few points with respect to big projects for 2020. Many of the commission members are familiar with the lime sludge dewatering facility that was recently approved by the City Council. That's an important facility for Moorhead Public Service water treatment in that we're running out of room to store our sludge, and that'll be a key facility for us going into the future. The other two items I'll just very briefly touch on. The Southside Water Tower, that's a facility going in approximately 40th Avenue and 28th Street South in Moorhead, not far from the Good Shepherd Church. That'll really enhance our distribution system on the south side of Moorhead. That project will be ongoing in 2020. Some of the main construction will really start up this upcoming year. And finally, just briefly talk about water main replacement. We've been working with City of Moorhead engineering staff to make sure that we're in the kind of main stages of planning and getting ready for summer projects for water main replacement, making sure that we coordinate like we always do and make sure the projects go well. So just very brief.
Go ahead.
Chairman, Chris, can you bring the two new commissioners up to date on the water tower art work and how that's progressing and what the plan is for that?
Sure, which...
We have two more towers that will be coming up that will have artwork.
Sure, which one? I can talk about both or one? Okay. So with respect to the Southside Water Tower, we actually did a community-driven design, I would say, and a couple of city council members were on there. Chuck was, Steve Gertz, I believe, was also on there, and a couple commissioners, and then community members from a variety of places. Came up with a real nice design. I think it has some real regional appeal. I wish I had, picture tells 1,000 words, right? I wish I had the image with me, but it's got some really nice elements from the neighborhood and from the south side of Moorhead. The Blue Stem Amphitheater is featured prominently in the design. That was the one element that I really remember. I could certainly bring something back just to kind of show you what it looks like. So that process has been complete. The project has been bid and awarded, and actually the foundations went in last year. So we'll start to see some of those concrete forms go up this year. And the last part will be raising the bowl. So our work will be the finishing touch. With respect to the I-94 process, we developed an agreement working with the city, and we actually already have a contract ready to go for the I-94 water tower repainting process. So many of you probably drive by the I-94 water tower. It's right next to the interstate. You can start to see some of that surface corrosion. We've known it's been needing to be blasted and painted for quite some time. We actually have a contract in place to complete that process in 2021 after the completion of the Southside Water Tower. That's being done for hydraulic reasons and planning reasons. So the city is actually responsible for the development of artwork and lighting with respect to that tower. So we have an agreement with the city that defines some of the costs for MPS and what the cost would be possibly for the city. And so the city is really kind of in the initial stages. I saw an email go out on the call for art. I haven't evaluated it closely yet, but I know that they're working. We had a committee meeting. They're working diligently on getting some community artwork for that, and I think it seems to be like the process is going well. They have a deadline of September 1st, I believe, to get the artwork submitted to MPS. Once we have it, we'll incorporate it into the project and build it in 2021. Yep.
Thank you. Anything else, Travis?
Excuse me. Next, I'm going to bring up Dennis Eisenbrown. He's our Energy Services Manager. He deals with our renewables, our SIP, key accounts. He kind of is our connection to our customers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Welcome. My name is Dennis Eisenbrown. I'm the Energy Services Manager. For the new commissioners, the last name Eisenbrown, just remember my eyes are brown. So you'll remember that name. The energy services, we are fairly broad in what we do at the utility. As Travis mentioned, I work a lot with the renewable and sustainable programs. We are responsible for bringing in the community solar gardens, the first fast electric charger in the metro area, and now Fargo is going to be putting some in, so good to see some more coming in. So those are some of the things I work out with. Probably one of the most significant things that's happening right now is in the mail recently we sent out flyers for a new program called Bright Energy Choices. And this gives customers a chance to be 100% renewable for very, very low amount of money. We're talking $1.50 to $2 a month, and they can claim 100% renewable. So it's a great program, and we've had a really good response from that so far. So. Something else then that we work with, it's called the Conservation Improvement Program. This is a state kind of a mandate goal for energy savings. And so that's one of the main things that I work on, and we work with customers to help them do things that implement more energy efficient equipment. And in order to encourage them to do that, we give them rebates, and those rebates come from our power supplier, Missouri River Energy Services. And that program is called Bright Energy Solutions, and it's really the kingpin to our rebates. And it's been a great program, and we've had rebates from $1.50 for a light bulb to $30,000-$40,000 for variable frequency drives in factories. So those are the kinds of things that we do. A sub-part of that program is for what we call the Affordable Housing Program. And this is where we provide appliances to low-income houses. And those clients are identified by the West Central Minnesota Community Actions Agency. And it's been a great partnership. We've been doing that for years, and we continue to do that. And we get quotes on local appliance vendors, and we kind of go back and forth on that. So it's just been a really good program. So. Something else I work on are key accounts, and those are the really big people. I consider really everybody a key account, but I can't visit 19,000 people. So we try to keep it to about 8 or 9 large customers. And we work with them. We try to meet with all of them in the first quarter of the year, and then the rest of the year as needs are dictated. One of the other things I do every November is I send them our rate information of what we're proposing for the following year, which I've done last year, which I've done ever since I've been the Energy Services Manager. So they always know what's coming, and they have a chance to come and talk to the commission. And finally, we do some community programs. One of them is we provide energy kits to all the 5th graders in school. This is a program called Power Team, and it teaches those kids about electric and water efficiency. It's been a great program, and we've gotten good results on that. So, And finally, Moorhead Public Service is part of the Concordia-driven Community Resilience Task Force. It's being funded by a Bush grant, and we are part of the infrastructure subcommittee, and it's going well. So we're trying to stay connected in other ways with the community as well. So we do a lot of different things. So, any questions?
Future plans for more solar gardens?
Not, well, we're thinking about it, and we aren't going to do it this year because we wanted to give the Sprite Energy Choices a chance to run without competition. But the solar garden that we have now up by between the wind turbines is completed as it was designed. So in order now to have another community solar garden, we need to pick another site and get that set up. So that's something we'll probably look at, starting next year. We'll probably start planning for it maybe this year, but there's no plans for construction this year. So.
Dennis, do you want to go a little bit more into detail on the Bright Energy Choices and why we're not, or because we're going to hold off on the solar because of the green energy that they can get by just paying a little extra?
Right now, the power that comes to Moorhead comes from a variety of sources. When you look at the mix of everything together, 63% of our power right now is considered renewable. A lot of that's hydroelectric, solar, and wind. So 63% is already renewable. The whole point of the Bright Energy Choices program was to figure out a way to make that other 37% renewable. And our power supplier, Missouri River, basically they said they'll work with us, and they're going to provide renewable energy credits for 0.5 cent per kilowatt hour just on that 37% of your energy. So for an average house that uses 900 kilowatt hours a month, that comes out to a whole whopping $1.67 a month. So if you want to buy a solar panel at a community solar garden and to do the whole house to be renewable, you would need 15 to 20 panels, and at $450 a pop, you're talking real money. Well, here at $1.67 per month, you can go 20 years and spend less than what it would cost you to buy. You can do that for $400 and be renewable that whole period. So it's in the 30 years that I've been in the utility business, it is by far probably the most customer-friendly program I've ever seen offered. It truly is better than sliced bread. So it's really a good and easy program to offer. So.
Other than the mailers, do we have anything else, that advertises this, or?
I think it's probably on our Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Sue?
Other way, right there.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Hiding behind
Is it
the
out
post.
there?
It went out in the mail.
Yeah.
That's also been out on Facebook as far as that. We're trying to get positive feedback.
Okay. Susan Orth is one of our administrative assistants, and she's kind of taken on the mantle of doing a lot of this electronic marketing for us. So thank you, Susan. So.
Thanks, Dennis. Any questions for Dennis?
One more person. Nancy Lunn is unavailable tonight, so I'm going to have Mark Moylan, and he's our controller. He's going to come up and talk on the administrative and finance side of things.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yes,
Thanks, Dennis.
Mark Moylan, Controller, Moorhead Public Service. Admin and Finance Division has 4 things listed on the manager's letter or whatever. And the biggest one that just occurred was we did a $7 million bond redemption and call that took place on February 3rd. So we paid down some old high-interest bonds from 2012, paid them down early. One thing we do have coming up, though, is a $14 million bond issue that'll take place in late April, with the proceeds coming to Moorhead Public Service in May 27th. However, the bonds that we redeemed were primarily for electric-related projects. The new bonds that we have are going to be for water-related projects, so just between the two divisions. So it seems odd that we're redeeming such a large amount and then buying another large amount, but they're for actually 2 different entities, and we try to keep those 2 entities separate from a financing and accounting standpoint. Another big item we have coming up in 2020 is the budget for 2020 and 2021, where we look at rates. That process begins in late summer. We get our preliminary numbers. Usually in September, we meet with all the division managers, lay out the capital project plans for the next year, review what we've done with our current year capital projects, make sure we're on budget, if we have some savings or we need some additional funding. we finalized those things in September. In October, we do update our operating budget to compare to actual and then what we project will happen. We usually have 9 months of actual activity, and we have a pretty good idea whether we're going to be meeting our operating budget from the previous year that we set, and then we use that to project forward into the next year. Usually, we start meeting with our power providers in September, October to get their firm rates. That is a major component of what Moorhead Public Service spends its money on, is purchased power. So those are very, very key items that we need to know. So again, we look at those in September. October, we finalize the budget or firm it up a little bit more. We have our formal rate hearing, and then rates are approved based on recommendations and a comment period, usually in early December. They go into effect, the first billings that go out in January. The fourth big item we have coming up is the two labor units have contracts that expire at the end of 2020. So I have personally not been involved in the negotiation portion of that, but I know that a lot of the work takes place in the fourth quarter so that the contracts can be finalized and ready for the next year. Historically, they've tried to work on 3-year contracts. There have been occasions where there have been 1 year, so again, that's just something to bear in the back of the mind, and again, that is something that you're going to be involved in as the year goes through. So those are 4 high-level things that we have going on in the admin and finance area.
Chuck?
Thank you, Madam. I never get that mic to stay on. With the budgeting process, who's all involved with Moorhead Public Service staff? And this is more for the new members.
It would be all of the division managers, the electric division, water division, IT. We also work with Dennis and the energy services to see what his needs might be. If there's a major project coming, for example, that there have been some work that has been needed on the solar project. So Moorhead Public Service has subsidized part of that or contributed to their construction. So there's quite a few people involved. There's probably 10 to 12 that actually provide some inputs into the budget.
Now, there's a budget committee that's usually assembled. Are they part of it too?
They will do final review. They'll be able to question us, look at it. We put together a pretty comprehensive budget binder every year that they are provided with, and they can look through that, and it actually details all of the projects that the division managers, the capital projects that they've identified. It provides what the operating budget was or will be, and gives 5 years of historical data, account by account. Provides some narratives as to the process, because again, it's a multi-step process as it goes through its approval.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
Nope. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Does that wrap it up, Travis?
We're good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Moving on to item number 11. I believe it's your item, Chris.
Chris Knutson, Water Division Manager. Just a brief background with respect to this item. This is the award bid for 2020 water treatment and wastewater treatment chemicals. And this is an annual reoccurring item. The intent of the item is to basically our annual contracts for purchase of chemicals we use on an ongoing basis for the water treatment plant. And we also have some chemicals on the list which are also utilized by the wastewater treatment plant for the city of Moorhead. So we work collaboratively with those folks to order chemicals for them as well. Travis and I had requested this item be off consent because we had a minor clerical error in the bid tabulation provided within the packet. A revised bid tab was provided, I believe, to the commission members, and it was for bid item 13, which was in the wrong spot. So the revised bid tab is correct, and we just ask that you approve the award bid with the revised bid tab noted.
Chris, can you Where was the error on that tab? I'm looking
Yeah,
at the.
so bid item number 13, we had previously, it's page 3 of the bid tabulation. It should be indicated in red. I don't know if you can see that. So that had previously been, that $11.25 had been in the air gas spot, so right above it, and it was meant to be in the American Development Corporation. So we caught that mistake this morning and just wanted to make sure that it was corrected before the award was done tonight. So
Yes.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I noticed multiple bid items only have one bidder. Is that due to lack of competition for competitive bidding, or do some of these companies not provide some of these chemicals, or is there a reason that we are not receiving more bids for specific chemical?
sure. Any items in particular? Or,
Yeah, I just looked, just for instance, bid item 1 for the lime, there was only one bidder
Yeah.
out of, multiple companies here.
Sure. So we go through the process of contacting these companies prior to the specifications being posted on Quest CDN. We typically get 2 bids for lime, but it's almost always awarded to Graymont Western due to location. So we typically get another bid from Mississippi Lime. However, that bid is, I don't know if they've ever won it. I can't recall that at this time, but just because of the proximity, geography matters so much, and there's only a few suppliers typically of chemicals. So we take extra diligence to notify, but obviously we can't control if they submit a bid or not. So
Yeah.
it's a big contract, so it's a good question.
Well, and this happens on an annual basis, I'm assuming?
That's
these
right.
bids?
Yep.
Would it make sense, and you can obviously compare these to previous years, but would it make sense to engage some of these companies that we know are going to be consistently the lowest cost provider for these chemicals in more of a long-term relationship, that maybe we could negotiate lower prices per unit?
We could look at that.
Just a question. We don't need to answer it here, but.
No, it's a
just an
good
idea.
question. Some of them have contacted us wanting to do that. It's certainly something we could look at for a future one. This is, we specified a time period for this project, obviously, and I'm open to exploring that for sure.
Yeah, just a comment, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, it's.
Questions? Any more? Okay. Ready for motion?
I'll move to approve the bids as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14, appoint interim general manager. That's us. You want to speak to this, Mary?
No, go ahead.
Would you like to, please? Thank you.
All right, the Human Resources Ad Hoc Committee is recommending Travis Schmidt for the position of interim manager, correct? Yes. Travis seems to know the workings, and he owns a suit. Who knew? So, anyway, do I need to make a motion then?
Yes,
Oh, Heidi's got a question.
yes.
Thank you. Thanks, both of you. It's so in the packet, it says contingent upon final legal review by MPS attorney. John, Mr. Bolger, have you had a chance to review that? Is that everything look okay from your
Well,
perspective?
it's possible to review, but nobody's given me any guidelines under which Travis would be employed as interim manager. So I would be happy to do a draft of a document to present back to you at the next meeting. I haven't even talked about terms with Travis yet, so
Okay.
if the commission wants to give me some guidelines on what they'd like to see for terms, I would most certainly incorporate those.
Mr. Bolger, were there specific terms that you were, I'm assuming duration?
Well, duration and compensation, and then job responsibilities would be three of the main things that I would
Okay.
like to address in the contract.
Okay, very good.
Madam Chair?
Can I finish?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you. There is the MPS policy guideline that regarding succession planning that's in our packet. I assume, Mr. Bolger, you would follow that, and that's what we could be, what we could assume you would resolve with Travis. Then would you bring that back to us for approval again? Once you have all those?
I think that it would be best if I submitted the contract to you,
Yeah.
because I've never talked with Travis about
Right.
whether any of those terms are acceptable to Travis.
So my question is, do we, if, so if we appoint the general manager tonight, is that contingent upon having created a contract with Travis? Or are those two separate? Are we basically saying we're approving this tonight so that you can write up a contract with Travis?
I think that would be appropriate. I'm not anticipating that there's going to be any problems, but I don't pretend to speak for Travis on this particular issue.
No, and Chris and I have talked about the succession plan policy and utilizing that as a
Right.
guideline.
Okay.
And I apologize if I've not provided the direction needed in this regard. I thought we were on the same page, but I didn't realize there was another step that we needed to take. So I apologize, and we can work this out.
It's no problem. I'm not anticipating a problem. I just would like to have the document to present to you, and I see no problem with you appointing him on an interim basis.
In the meantime, okay. Right.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. I think that answered most of my question. I guess I was curious whether the ad hoc committee had discussed compensation in any terms related to the interim agreement, or?
Pretty much, we had talked about just going with the guidelines that Bill Schwant had sent out prior to this.
Which is the policy on succession planning.
Okay,
So, which I believe cites with a 10% salary increase, and outlines, it's in the policies that are loaded onto your iPad.
yep. And I noticed it meant,
Is it in there?
it deals with most of the terms I think that you're looking for, correct? So,
Correct.
so we should be okay there. The only concern I may have, and this is maybe directed to Mr. Schmidt, in assuming the duties of the interim general manager, do you anticipate being able to handle the workload of those duties as well as your existing duties?
Yep, yeah, I've talked with Chris and Mary separately on this, and we've had a good conversation about that, and I should be able to handle that. Along with that, I've got some good competent staff that can help take on a little bit extra as well, too.
Certainly, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And then our next step, in the policy states that we need to begin a regional or national search. At what point do we begin that, or has that started amongst the human resource group, or what will we do next?
The next step, I believe, will be we'll pull in Jerry and have a conversation and get the ball rolling there. We thought it was important to be expedient in getting somebody in place. And so that was our first sort of duty, responsibility. And then we talked about meeting later on. And our sunset date is June 1st. So our committee has to come up with a recommendation for a general manager before that date. So while it seems far away, it's really not. So we'll, before the next meeting, we'll have set up a meeting
Okay.
and be able to update you as we go along.
Okay, all right, excellent, thank you.
Any other
Chuck's got a
questions?
question.
Madam Chair. Thank you. You know, with this, you're going to work out this contract. What's the turnaround time on that? You're not going to give it the same day as the meeting, right? It's going to be well before that, hopefully?
It will be ready before the next meeting, probably by this time next week.
Okay. Just I worry about timelines because sometimes we do get information same day as the meeting and it's, you kind of rush through it, so I'm just asking, so thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we don't have a motion yet. I don't believe.
No, I can rephrase that into a motion. I would move that we appoint Travis Schmidt interim manager at this time.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none? We're not closing the meeting. Note the next meeting is February 18th. Then after that, March 3rd if necessary. Seeing no objection?
Chris,
Yes.
will the next meeting be here or at the Operations
I
Center?
believe all meetings are here
All are
until
here August, I
sometime in
believe.
August,
Okay.
where we have to move to the Ops Center one time.
The March 3rd meeting will be needed as well.
March 3rd,
Yep,
we'll need the meeting.
yep.
Okay, so plan for the March 3rd meeting. Okay? Thank you. That's it. Thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.